Hello, we are a Delta Group. My name is Ryan, and I'm going to be talking about our research question. And we decided to ask, does news sources consumed by college students influence their opinions on a political spectrum? And if so, how? And we predicted that there'd be a large polarization between the different people who identified in certain political parties. And we decided to go with an anonymous survey. We wanted to be non-biased and confidential. So we did that by leaving out names, gender, and age. And our first overall question that we asked was to define news and to get their interpretation and definition on what news is to them.
Hi, my name is Donovan Vokes, and I'm going to tell you about the methodology for this project. So our target population was composed of students who attend the University of Oregon. The only parameter for participants to be allowed to take our survey was that they were a current student here at U of O. Now, since our research question deals with political ideology, part of our sample included a convenience sample of students active in politically based organizations that operate on the UO campus. And then individual research members also reached out in a more simple random sample-based method to contacts across positions at U of O, including our coworkers, fellow dorm mates, classmates, so that we would have a more generalizable sample of U of O students. We then designed a survey consisting of a total of 15 questions. And after completing our individual pilot tests, our survey questions were finalized and transferred into a Google Forms document, which could be accessed either by a link to the survey or by a scannable QR code. Once a survey was completed, the responses were recorded without the inclusion of any personally identifying information. And in order to be in accordance with ethical guidelines, we took precautions to limit potential risks to all participants, particularly in regards to informed consent, anonymity, and confidentiality. Instructions were given to participants prior to the survey about the structure of the survey, how long it would take to complete, that participation in the survey was completely voluntary and optional. It was also made clear that these responses were going to be totaled out in averages shared to the class, but no individual responses would be presented in our findings.
I'm Mary. I'm going to be talking about the findings. So most of the respondents of our survey were from like the western part of the United States. In the diagram, you can see that's like from like the Colorado region west. And then that most of them were from urban areas, which we defined as populations of 35,000 people or more. Most of the respondents said that their views were important to them. And that like ranged in order from like Democrats were more likely to say that their views were very important. Independents said that they were important, and then Republicans were least likely to say that their political views were important. And this also included an other category, which was non-responsive answers, and then like people that didn't, that just like gave a joke answer. Over 50% of the respondents said that they got their news from social media as their main source. And 2/3 of those that got their news from social media said that they did follow political pages, while half said that half of the that said that their political views were important. About half of them did follow political pages. It was like around like 50-50. And then the people that said that their political views were not important did not follow political pages on social media. And then while 2/3 of people that said news was that followed those political pages and that said that their views were very important, only 18.8% of them said that they were likely to share like posts or like just like tell people about what they saw, while 25% of people said that they were unlikely to engage in any type of media that they see politically wise. And then we predicted that there would be larger differences across parties for the respondents' answers, but there weren't any drastic differences that we could tell based on political party. So those were our limits, like our findings, and then we have our some limitations.
Hi, my name is Seth Zemecki, and I'll be discussing the limitations of our project. One of our bigger limitations was something that we had sort of grown accustomed to and we expected. The nature of our study being based around a project limited us greatly because it gave us a shorter timeline to do what we really wanted to do. Because of this, we spent a substantial amount of time descaling and simplifying our project to fit the timeline. On top of this, we also had some unforeseen limitations. One of these revolves around the attendance of the group to no fault of any members of our group. We had a few instances where one or more members of our group could not be present at meetings, including myself being out through the entirety of week 2 due to COVID-19 complications. Again, to the fault of no one in particular. That's just the way that these things happen sometimes. While we feel very strongly that every member of the group did a very strong and passionate job in doing their part, we have to acknowledge the difficulty that comes with having a missing member. Another unforeseen limitation that we encountered was that we were asking people questions about politics and the media during a time where politics are, or during a time where these topics are very sensitive due to the circumstances of the world and the conflict in Ukraine. If we would have conducted this study maybe 2 months prior, or if we were to conduct this study 2 months later, our results would likely be very different because of the change in climate. However, with these limitations comes an opportunity to learn and grow in new research.
Hey, my name is Megan, and our advice for future researchers, like Seth said, was probably longer term research as we were very limited in our timeline. And also sampling outside of U of O students. Our survey wasn't representative of every college in the US or even on the West Coast. So going outside of U of O and maybe on a bigger scale. And that's our project. Thank you.
I don't know how to stop this recording. Okay.